Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Redeemed Marriage Podcast. This is Rusty and Heather Bryant. We're glad to be back with you today. And welcome. If you've never joined us before, we are glad that you have found us and glad that you found our podcast. So wherever you're listening from, thank you for tuning in. And we hope that if this podcast, if it blesses you in any way, we would love for you to give us a rating and a review. And that would be very helpful because it would give more people the opportunity to listen because it puts us in front of more people. So there you go. That's your commercial for the day or your call to action, the ask that we have for you. All right.
And some people email us or go to our contact form and let us know that our podcast means a lot to them. And that just it just keeps us doing what we're doing. You know, it's just encouraging. It never makes me feel prideful. It just is, there are people out there hurting and this is making a difference.
Yeah.
So, and that's just all God.
Yeah, that's good. Yep. So thank you for those that send those in or respond on social media.
Or give us a 5-star rating. Is it a 5-star?
5-star.
5-star
Unless
rating.
They don't like us 5-star.
No. I just meant, is it a 5-star or a 10-star?
No, it's 5. And the only place you can actually do that, well, I don't know. Some of these smaller platforms, I'm not real sure, but Apple Podcast and Spotify, you can definitely do a 5-star rating.
I gotcha.
And then on Apple Podcast, you can leave like a written review.
Okay, gotcha.
And that's the only one.
Yeah, all those podcasts I listen to.
Yeah, whatever. I'll just keep you informed of all the good stuff that's out there.
Okay.
So today, we're going to be talking about burning your ships. So, this is, you guys, I know everybody has heard the phrase, burn the ships. Do you know where it came from? Oh, this is good. I'm putting you on the spot. No.
Something in history.
Something in history.
Before I was born.
Yes, it was. So I know that, there's actually a lot of different, there's several points in history, I think, that people attribute this
George
to.
Washington.
No.
Oh,
they could have been, but I think the big one is the Spanish explorer Cortez, I believe was his name. He had come over to Mexico, and all the ships, because in case you didn't know, that was their method of travel back then. They didn't have the airplanes and such.
That's right.
So they came over on their ships, and he knew that it was going to be hard for them, and he wanted them to be fully committed.
Ooh, so they couldn't go back.
So they couldn't go back. There was no retreating if they burned the ships.
Ooh, I see where you're going with this.
So they this is going to be a good one.
It is.
So they landed, and he commanded them to burn the ship.
Yeah.
So there was no going back. There was no retreating. So he knew that it was going to be hard and they were going to face difficult times ahead of them, but he wanted them to be fully committed.
Yeah.
And so, I keep a list of podcast topics, that come up maybe when we're doing coaching, or I hear something on another podcast, or I read something in a book, or just something in our life pops up, and I always just make little notes and hey, this would be good to talk about someday. And this was one that I put recently, and I think that the reason that I started thinking about this a lot was because we work with so many couples in marriage coaching and retreats and intensives and just all of the different things that we offer. And a lot of those people come to us and they have some sort of betrayal or brokenness in their marriage, some mistrust. And so they are making this commitment to stay together in their marriage. and that's why they come to us. They want to make it work. They don't want to get a divorce, and that's a big first step. But there's also a lot of people, and I noticed this in our prayer requests from back in February, just reading through so many of those prayer requests, and so many of them were, a lot of them had to do, there was infidelity or there was other things going on, but there were quite a few that were just like, we're just roommates, and our marriage is just boring. I don't know. It's like there's no life in it. We're just living out our days as a married couple. And so, I started thinking about what was different about our situation when we journeyed through infidelity 13 years ago, and how we really got to a point where we are today. And instead of just, hey, let's get back to where we were kind of a thing. And so I feel like that for us, it was really a burning of the ships where we were just kind of all in. And it wasn't just, hey, this is an area of our marriage that was obviously broken because there was infidelity. And so you could pinpoint, the things that led to that, and we talk about that over and over and over and over on our podcast. But, we did not say, okay, well, let's fix that and get back to where we were and continue on with life. It was this full commitment of, nope, it's time to burn all of the ships. And there's no going back to the way we were in any area. And there may have been things there were things that were good about our marriage, but I think that even in that reset, it gave us an opportunity to go, nope, even that wasn't good.
Right.
Or even that wasn't good enough.
Yeah. Well, I can think of one example is our parenting. I mean, when we looked at our marriage, we felt like we did a pretty good job in you were a great daddy, I was a good mom, and we even parented together the boys well. We were on the same page, we worked together, all of those things. And even though we could look back onto that and say that was a good part, it still was like it's going to look different too.
Yeah, so I thought what we could do maybe just for a few minutes is maybe pinpoint some of those areas and just how, even like what you just said, yeah, that was okay, but we're not going back. This was our chance. And I think that there's a lot of couples out there that listen to our podcast and they are on this journey from a betrayal of some sort, infidelity, or other type of betrayal. And they've made this commitment to where, okay, we're going to fight for our marriage. We're going to stay together. But I do think that it's that some of it, it's just like, okay, well, here's where we were beforehand. And obviously we have fallen way below that. And so we got to get back to there. And we're like, nope, that's not the goal. The goal is not to get back to where you were. The goal is to far exceed that. And then if there's, the couple that's just like, man, there's no life in our marriage. I sure wish we could get back to the way we were. And even the people that think, I wish we could get back to where we were, man, those early days, they were so great. The honeymoon. Yeah, that's true. But your marriage can be even better than that.
Right.
Like those feelings and those emotions, they die because that's an unusual and it's great. And it's but once you get into your marriage, it has to be more than just feelings and emotions and newness.
Right.
And so for the couple that's listening and just feels like, yeah, we're just kind of going through the motions and we're just roommates, like I don't want you to listen to this and go back and, oh, can we get back to where we were? No, let's burn the ships and change everything.
Yeah. And, I also know because I've met with several in the past couple of weeks that there are people out there that aren't even to that point yet. They're to the they're to the point of let's just hold on until our kids get out of the house and then we can separate. Like, let's just get back to the point where we can coexist.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get back to the point where we can even be under the same roof without killing each other
Mm-hmm.
and just be civil until the kids leave. And what I want to say to that couple, and if you're listening and that's where your heart is, you can have so much more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, God can completely change your marriage from even how bad and how hard it is right now. So I think that there's people listening that are in stages all along that path
Sure.
of, hey, let's fight for our marriage, but let's just try to get back to where we were, to, hey, we're committing to stay together until the kids leave and then we can be done, because there's no way we're ever going to get back to where we were, much less better than we
Mm-hmm.
were. So I think there's a rainbow of people who are listening that could find themselves anywhere in that. And to all of you, like, even if it seems impossible, God can work a miracle to get you to where it's way better than where you used to be.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think about those early, the whole story of burning the ships, and I think about them coming and landing on a brand new place. And as long as those ships were there, there's a tendency to kind of stay close to the ships because it's like, well, if I don't wander too far into this new land, then I can always just turn around and get back on the ship and go back the way I came. But once those ships were gone, it forced them to not even just hang out on the beach area anymore. It was like, all right, well, we got no choice. We're heading deep into this, deep into
That's
the
right.
woods, deep into the land, wherever they were going. But as long as there's this option of let's go back to the way it was, then there's no real full commitment to let's build something new.
Yeah.
Because that's what they were doing. I mean, some of them were some of them were leaving things that they wanted to leave, but some of them were just the excitement of we want something new. Like, we want to go and explore something that can be better than what we have. And so maybe they didn't leave behind something terrible. They just wanted something new. But even then, they weren't going to go fully all in until there was no chance of going back. And so when we started when I started thinking about all these different areas of our marriage and how we had to just say, nope, it's not going to be the way that it was before. And so I don't know, some of those things that I thought about were, I think a big one for me was just our acknowledgement of taking care of ourselves and how important that was to our marriage. And so, and that involved spiritual disciplines, that involved, and we talked, actually, it was last week's podcast where we talked specifically about like our spiritual journeys and how we, the things that we do there. And I think that was one of those that up until that point was just really going through the motions. I mean, if people looked at us, they would have said, man, great family, go to church every Sunday, take their kids to church, they serve, they lead worship, they do all the things. But there was nothing really in our hearts that was changing us individually. It was just all on the outside. And so that was one of the things that I think would have been really easy to just go, all right, we got to weather this storm. There's been confession of infidelity. We're going to survive this, and then we're going to go back and be that couple that went to church every Sunday, served, back to where we were. And man, we just like that. I think that was one of the biggest changes that we just said, nope, we're burning that
Yeah.
ship, and it's going to be completely different this
Yeah.
time.
And when you were talking about how um, when you don't want to look back and have the option of having the ship. And so also what I was thinking about is once they burned it, there was no visual reminder of the ship. Like even if they're standing on the shore and just looking and being reminded of what, even if they weren't tempted to get back on it at that point, it's still a visual reminder of that was the past life. And so I love the idea of that's another reason to burn it down and to move forward is because you don't have to be reminded of it constantly. And I think that for us in our spiritual life, in our church life, in how we decided to pursue the Lord with as a family, like it was just completely different. And we knew that there was something more out there. So it wasn't like we did it in such a way that we weren't even visually or physically reminded of how things used to be. It was just, hey, let's go in a completely different direction for that.
Yeah, and I mean, so many people have journeyed through and have heard our story, and a big part of that is that we uprooted ourselves from a church that was a part of our life for 35 years. And there were a lot of reasons that we had to do that, but I think on the spiritual side of things it was, hey, in order for us to be challenged in a different way, we had to remove ourselves from what we had always known.
Right.
And so, and part of what I think is so great about that is I think that also has transferred down to our children.
Right.
To where they're kind of okay with, not just being stuck in the same place all the time. And, both of our kids have gone off to college. They've both had to find new churches to be involved in. And, the fact that, I mean, there's nothing wrong with finding your church and being invested in it. But I'm just saying that because our story had to hit that reset, that was a big part of it.
Right.
Was just going into and it was scary. I mean, it was really scary because we knew nothing else and knew nothing different. And so, but willing to take that step and go, you know what? We're doing it because we're burning the ships and we're going all in and do something different. I was thinking about just these different areas, and I know for one, the communication.
That's what I was going to say.
Well, go.
No, I mean, when you brought this topic to me and you asked, just think about ways that things that we burned down that we had to completely start new. And it was definitely communication was the first thing on my list. And I just think that we are just so much more open now. And you are such a safe place for me where I don't think, well, I know I wasn't a safe place for you before, but there were things about our communication in general that were just not safe. We couldn't be honest with each other without feeling attacked or feeling disappointment or any of those feelings that go along with it. But we can be so incredibly honest with each other and have learned to say it in a way that is not attacking or shaming, but it's in a way that says, hey, this is what's going on in me, and this is how you make me feel in this area. And if that's something that needs to be changed, then we change it. And like, I'm just going to give an example of today. And I might be throwing myself under the bus here a little bit, but
that's fun. Do that.
Okay. But I've been having some, I'm going through a journey with like weight loss, with physical image, and I've put on a few pounds recently, and I'm questioning like, why is that happening? What is, and when I came to you several weeks ago and we're like, hey, this is really bothering me. What do you think about it? How do you think that I should go about fixing it? We talked about exercise and the way I eat and all of these things. And in that, I heard, that's not saying that you said it, but I heard that you didn't think I could do it. That's what I heard. And I've kind of been sitting on that. You know, I was like, he thinks I'm going to fail. He doesn't think I'm going to do that. And I've kind of been sitting on it, praying about it, doing. And what I had to remember is I know because of your character that that's not true. I know that you would not believe that about me. So in the past, I mean, past, I would have sat on that and fumed and made it bigger than it was. And it would have driven a wedge between us, all of the things. But instead, I came to you and I said, hey, this is what I heard. I know it's not what you meant, but this is what I heard. And I need you to explain a little bit more. I need you to tell me what you meant when you said this thing. And you did. You were like, hey, that is absolutely not what I meant. I believe in you. I know that you can do it. I know that it can be hard. And we had a wonderful 5-minute discussion about it, and then it was over. And so just the communication of being able to be open, to be honest, to have a safe place to say, this hurt me, or this is how I'm scared, or this is how I'm feeling, and it doesn't line up with what I know to be true about you or about God. And so I need your help in this. So that's one area that I just think has changed dramatically, where we're like, we're not going back to the way we communicated. And even with our boys, like, we are so open and honest with our boys, and they are therefore open and honest with us. Like, there are things that our boys will bring to us and say, hey, what do y'all think about this? That if I tell a, tier 1 friend or tier 2 friend about that, about the conversation, they're like, oh my gosh, I wish my children would talk to me about that. Or, you don't know how blessed you are to have children that will open up about that. But it's because we've modeled that, and it's because we changed how we communicated with each other and how we show communication with our children as well. So I never want to go back to the tiptoeing around, eggshell type of conversations that we used to have. And so, but that took a lot of hard work. I mean, that took a lot of hard work, and still it takes, I mean, I had to tell the enemy to go away. Like, no, that is not true. I know that's not true. Let me go to truth, and let me go to Rusty and say, this is what I heard. Now explain to me how it's different, because I know it is.
Sometimes I wish, no, I don't really wish, but it would be interesting to just go back pre-infidelity for just like a day and watch how we interacted and communicated with each other, because I don't know that it would be even recognizable now. And, and so much of that is just this commitment to doing things differently, but we learned lots of tools and resources along the way that we've put into place. And I also think that a big part of that is because we are emotionally and spiritually healthy individually.
Right.
And that makes a big difference in being able to communicate in a healthy way together. I was thinking about too, and I know that there's people that have to feel this, especially those that have had betrayal of some sort of physical betrayal, but even like our physical intimacy, and how that has, it wasn't probably when the infidelity happened. I mean, I'm sure it was, we're never going to be able to be healthy in that area again because of the damage. And it is such a damaging thing. And there's people out there that still struggle so much to get past that, or to even make that a part of their marriage again. And it's very hard. But I think that what we did, even in that area, was, we're not, the way we were before will not be how we are going forward. And so just knowing that we don't, that's one of those things too, that we don't really walk around on eggshells, and we don't, and I think that the funny thing is that so much of this, everything layers on top of each other. So the more healthy we are individually and spiritually, which is what I started us talking about, the more healthy we are on a communication level. the more healthy we are on a communication level, the more healthy we are on a physical level. And so,
Well, Chip even said this morning in his sermon, he said, if you get it right with Jesus, then everything else is going to fall into place. Like like that has to be first. And so all of these things in marriage, all these different areas that we've grown, all and have changed, all came because of our relationship with Jesus changed first.
yeah, yeah. And I think that, just the attitude of, I don't want this to look anything like it used to look. And, for me, that's the whole point of this this topic that we're talking about, and the burning the ships, is just as you're changing. And I just think that there's so many people out there that you do need a complete overhaul and a complete reset of your marriage. And even those people that go, well, I mean, it's pretty good, we have a pretty good marriage. But if you're really honest and you really take a step back and look at it, there we go. I was making sure we were still recording back there. But if you take a step and look, you could go, man, but things really could be a lot better. And, I think we're still learning it, and we're still adapting, and we're still implementing things. We still learn, and we still learn from so many of these people that we are guiding and teaching. We learn from them, which is a great thing. And we also hear the places that they get hung up, and it reminds us, okay, we're not going back there because we've lived that, and we know what that feels like. But it's just this commitment to nothing's going to look the same. We don't want to go back the way we were. So all of that to say, if you are in a season of life where you're trying to rebuild trust, you're moving forward from something that's a betrayal, then yes, you have to burn the ships, burn them all. Don't go back the way you were in any area of your marriage.
Yeah.
But if you're also one of those that's just, I'm tired of just living life with a roommate. I want a marriage that's thriving, that's full of life. And in the same way, burn the ships, and have that conversation with your spouse. Like, hey, I think things can be just so much better, but it can't be, let's get back to the way we were. It's, let's change all of this.
It reminds me of the story in Scripture that I talk about quite often, where the woman's caught in adultery and they're wanting to stone her. And after they all dropped their stones, because none of them could say they had never sinned, Jesus says, you're forgiven. And then, of course, my favorite quote is, now go and sin no more. And it is turning your back on everything that you knew and making it different and making it better and making it, I just envision walking away, like you said, from the shore into the depths of let's make it different. And there were things about me that I changed and will never go back. And I think of things like the way I dressed. Like, I feel like I dressed in a very please look at me way. And I just, now I don't dress like that. And I will never go back to dressing in a way where I'm trying to draw attention through that. Boundaries that we had to build trust. Like, we had to completely rebuild trust, and boundaries that we draw. It's not like I'm ever going to go, hey, we're almost 14, 15 years out of this thing. Can we loosen up on that? Like, no.
Right.
It's never going to change because it looks different and it looks better. So as I thought through the ways that we've burned different ships, there's a million different directions we could go. And so if you're listening, we've given you ideas of how we did it, but there's other areas too. There are other areas that Jesus is saying, hey, you're forgiven, but it's got to look different. Not a little different, but 180 degrees, turn your back, walk away, and go and sin no more, and make it look different. Make it look like Jesus.
Yeah, and some of it, you just kind of made me start thinking about some of the things that are even really simple that I wasn't even really thinking about, but just like stuff that we would watch on
Yeah.
TV and movies and things that, we just, hey, we don't want to put that in.
Yeah, and we weren't watching hardcore.
No, no.
But I mean, we know people
Sure.
who are.
Sure.
So stop it.
Yeah.
And then but even just the things that may have too many F-bombs in it, or, for me, I mean, violence just doesn't bother me. It's fine. But I mean, that's okay for me. It may be bad for somebody else, but even the relationship stuff, like not even that's rated R, let's not watch that because it has language and sex in it, but just the quote innocent ones that just show relationships that are not how God how God desired relationships to be in a God honoring way, that just make things normal that aren't supposed to be normal, So we just don't, we watch a lot of killing them up and action shows, but there's just not a lot of if it's not relationally how God has designed it, then it's just like,
Yeah, I mean, and I think people have heard me say this before, but I can get, and I know we've coached a lot of people that have kind of said the same thing, that they can get triggered pretty easily watching shows and movies that, the relationship part of it, there's something with infidelity or, just unmarried relationships that are, just not the way it's supposed to be. And that's why I prefer even like comedies. I want to watch the ones where the couple's married.
Yeah. Even if it's dysfunctional.
Right. But, sometimes it's like, there's still things about that show, but for the most part, one of my favorite shows is The King of Queens, but they're married. And so even the sexual jokes and that can be funny and to us because we know that on the show they're married.
Yeah.
And it's different when you have that going on and it's not a married couple. So I don't know. There's just things like that I feel like we put into place and we're like, we're just not going back to that. So
there's lots of that. I would just encourage you to think through your life and your relationship, your marriage, and think, what could we make different? And then for those of you who are coming out of infidelity or out of broken trust, and you're trying to get on the other side of this, make your goal bigger. Make your goal to be completely different, and ask your spouse to go with you on that journey, to not try to get back to where you were. Because I didn't want to get back to where I was. That led me to nowhere good.
Yeah, you haven't walked foot in a gym in 13 years.
I did just talk about gaining weight.
People are like, maybe you should go back to the
gym, you moron.
But that's one of those things that for some, and everybody is different. And we're not saying quit the gym.
Yeah.
Chandler, I want to quit the gym. We're not saying quit the gym. But for us, that was one of those burn the ship moments. And it wasn't like, okay, well, now we're better, so let's go back to the gym. It was like, no, that's just not part of what's going to happen. And so, that it's a lot of figuring. It's all individual to you and your spouse, and you guys figure it out.
Because we're not telling you have to quit the gym.
No, we're definitely not. We're not telling you which TV shows to watch
That's
either.
Right, exactly.
But know the things that you need to change to make your marriage different.
Ask God.
Yeah.
Say, God, that is.
What do we need to change?
What do we need to change? That's one of my. I just finished a book. Oh, I'm so terrible. I can't even. I can't remember. Sorry. I'll try to put it on the Instagram or something this week. But I think it's called Closer to God. And her name is Jeannie, but I don't know her last name. And it talks about the Holy Spirit and asking the Holy. When you accepted Christ, the Holy Spirit came in you. It is your connection to Jesus. And so ask him. Ask the Holy Spirit to reveal things, to make you uncomfortable in things you need to give up, to just give you a little check in, is this really what I should be watching or listening to or doing or saying or whatever? So, I mean, ask him if you think, oh, we're good, ask him
Mm-hmm.
because you're not.
Yep.
None of us have arrived.
Yep.
So always just say, God, how can we be better?
That's good. Okay, so Heather's telling you to go buy the book by the genie, and she doesn't know what the name of it is.
So bad.
So, hey, thanks, guys, for listening, and we're going to be back with you again next week because we come back to you every Monday, and so we'll see you next time on the Redeemed Marriage Podcast.
Peace.